So my name is Allison Madison. I am the Sustainability and Development Coordinator at Wisconsin Saltwise. Wisconsin Saltwise is a coalition of organizations from across the state that are working together to reduce salt pollution into our lakes, streams, and our drinking water. And one of the ways that we see that we need to do that is to get more people talking about salt, talking about salt pollution and the chloride and sodium that's in our water, as well as the best practices that we can use to bring those concentrations down. So I'm very excited today to have Matt Whittam back with us. Matt works with the town of Lynn near Lake Geneva. He's the highway superintendent, right? I like to say the highway super.
I've been called worse.
Abbreviate that. And yeah, so Matt's worked in winter maintenance for, I think, most of his life. Probably you were like 10 when you started shoveling and helping out the neighbors, and then worked in Illinois. And now he has crossed over the border and is working in Wisconsin. And while I have him on here, hopefully I don't embarrass him too much, but I need to let everybody know that Matt is going up to Appleton tomorrow for the APWA, the American Public Works Association conference in Wisconsin, where he's going to be awarded the new member, is it Achievement Award, Matt? Impact Award.
Impact, yep.
Impact Award. So I'm just really so grateful that Matt is a part of the Saltwise team and always willing to help share his expertise and knowledge around best practices, especially the use of brine on roads. And so what he's going to be sharing us, that's what he's going to be sharing with us about today. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt in just a minute here, who's going to lead us through his presentation. During the presentation, you can type any questions that you have or comments for Matt into the chat, and then I'll be able to share those out as Matt finishes up his more formal comments, and he's really happy to take any questions that you have. So please do make this as interactive as possible. And if there are any questions afterwards, we can always loop you back to Matt or to myself to get you information that you would need. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. So Matt, you can share your screen now.
Did it work?
Yep, it's pulled up. There you go. Perfect.
All right. That only took like 2 or 3 tries and we got it. This fall, when we do ours, our next one, I'll be able to do this by myself without your help. All right. Well, thank you very much to Allison and Saltwise for having me again. I appreciate it. It's a privilege for me to be able to do this and to work with them. She is right. I've been doing this for quite a number of years, more than I originally thought when I sat down and thought about it a few days ago. But just like a lot of folks, not only am I in winter maintenance, but I love the outdoors. I've got 2 boys. We have a cabin up in northern Wisconsin that our family uses. And my boys and I love fishing. And basically what it boils down to is as winter maintenance professionals, we're charged with making roads and sidewalks and parking lots safe for use by the general public in the winter. But at the same point in time, what we're doing with salt has some pretty serious consequences and damages. And a lot of it we can't see. A lot of it is below the surface or happening within a body of water's ecosystem. So I'm a very big advocate of doing what we have to do to try and make these roads and parking lots and sidewalks as safe as we can, but also doing it responsibly, because our groundwater and our fresh water, there is only so much. And once we introduce chlorides to it, it's pretty much irreversible. And we need to be good stewards and advocates for this. So I wanted to get a little bit into, I guess, what we're calling the facts and myths of salt brine. It's gained a lot of popularity here in the state of Wisconsin over the last handful of years. And some of the newer things that I guess I'm seeing and hearing is there's a lot of negative things being said about salt brine, rusting out vehicles faster, and to that effect. And then there's also, I've had some discussions with some agencies and operators that will tell me that it's a waste of time, it's a useless product, it's not, it's not doing what we thought it would do. And I'm finding in that case, a lot of people are kind of working outside of the parameters of where it should be used. If you don't stay within those parameters, you're going to set yourself up, your agency, your business to fail. And nobody wants to fail. So we'll dive into it a little bit here. There, my snowflake was moving. So like I said, the use of brine has increased all across the country and in the industry. And salt prices are going up and up and up. I'm doing an article for the American Public Works Association, and I've seen salt prices fluctuate to more than double their average in the last 10 years. And there's really no sign that they're going to go down. And the current state of our economy and everything is just setting the stage for them to keep going up. Same thing with our environmental concerns. There's more awareness now of what's happening after the road is clear and where those chlorides are going. So with that being said, we'll take a few, I guess, facts or myths and try and, I guess, debunk them or validate them. And like Allison said, if there's questions, please let me know afterwards. I'll be here for a little bit. If somebody has a question, and my contact information is on the last slide. I'm always ready to help somebody or answer questions. And if I don't have the answer, I'll gladly work to get it to get everybody the correct information. So the first one for facts or myths is whether making or purchasing your brine, the higher percentage of salt concentration or the salinity of it, the more effective the brine is or can be. And that would be a myth. Salt brine is most effective when it's 23.3%. The chart to the left that I've put on here will show you basically its eutectic temperature, or its temperature at which it will freeze, its lowest freeze point. And you can see the 23 is highlighted, but you will also note that if your concentration goes up just a few percentage points, you actually will freeze brine just like you'll freeze water. So it is critical that your brine be at the correct percentage. I think this is one of the areas where, especially if you're making your brine or even if you're buying it, it's always a good idea to test the product that you're getting. But if your concentration is off just a little bit, it's one of the easiest ways to fail. If you're putting down brine that's 26% and the pavement temperature is 25 degrees, you're going to have issues and you're going to create issues, and the brine will work against you. The next one we got is a common thing, kind of with the vehicle corrosion and salt brine wrecks my vehicle faster, is that the statement has been made that salt brine is more corrosive than rock salt. And in my humble opinion, that is also a myth, because rock salt itself will not do anything until it goes into its solution. It needs to take the moisture around it, which is in the form of snow or ice. And once it starts to break down and go into a solution, that's when it does its quote unquote melting. What people commonly think of melting is basically the salt kernel, as it turns into brine using the moisture, is just lowering the freezing point of water. So once that happens in that solution, then it'll start to break down the snow and ice around it. Again, brine that's made specific to a specific percentage by volume, once those percentages changes, that's back to that chart that I just had, that's when refreezes happen or issues occur. So, obviously you have your rock salt and you throw it down. If it continues to snow on it and it continues to dilute, its percentage is going to start decreasing. And then that's obviously time for reapplication. Plus, in the end, especially you'll notice in colder weather events, you'll see a lot of roads that are very white. That is the brine. If you're not using brine right now and you're just using salt or even a sand salt, when you see white residue on the road afterwards, that's your leftover brine. I apologize for this picture. It's not very clear, but another statement, agencies or companies that use salt brine for pre-treatments and de-icing are causing faster rates of corrosion than if they were just to spread salt. So this ties into the obvious, the salt is rusting my vehicle, or the salt brine is rusting my vehicle faster, etc. So I broke it down. I think this number is very accurate as far as the first bullet point, that a gallon of salt brine contains on average 2.2 pounds of salt. I make my own brine, and I know I don't scale my material, but based on the size bucket I use to fill the hopper in my brine maker, I am, give or take, 2,200 pounds of salt to make 1,000 gallons of brine. So I believe this number is pretty accurate. So based on that, a paved lane 10 to 12 feet wide would get a typical application of 40 gallons a lane mile, both in an anti-ice or a de-icing setting. This would be more geared toward a de-icing setting because we're talking about the salt brine is rusting my vehicle faster. The 40 gallons a mile also is a fluctuating number. Industry recommendations can go down to 30 all the way up to 50. So I took middle of the road. Using the figures above, 40 gallons of brine in that mile will have 88 pounds of salt in it. Your traditional application rate for straight salt is an average of 300 pounds a mile, or that's what you want to target at. As pavement temperatures get colder, it is more. But using this in my example, you, for that mile, are using 212 pounds of salt less. So you treat that mile with brine and it's 88 pounds. You treat of salt, you treat that mile with rock salt, it's 300 pounds. The basic math points to there's no way that brine is accelerating, the deterioration of vehicles faster than rock salt. I'm sure there's some other factors that can be weighed into that statement. The quality of metals that things are being made of now may not be as good. Maybe the people making those statements don't wash their cars enough. You still have to take care of your vehicles too. So I hope this makes sense. I think this is a very important slide for anybody who, I guess, as a supervisor or elected official, may hear these statements in their community. This presentation's archived, or I'd be glad to send this slide or presentation to anybody. But I think that breaks it down pretty simply what, to debunk that statement. Next one is applying salt brine to salt as it is being applied in a pre-wet setting. It gives the salt its moisture source, so it can begin working immediately. So that is a fact. It does. Applying a liquid to the salt as you're applying the material does give it its moisture source and begins the process of turning it into a solution immediately. There's no delay. Think back a few slides ago where I was talking about how a kernel of rock salt needs a moisture source to start doing something. This picture kind of highlights that pretty good. This clump or group of salt is placed there. You can see where it has taken all the available moisture around it. And as this picture stands, if you were to hit the pause button in time, nothing else is going to occur there until either something moves that salt a little more, or maybe a vehicle or a person tracks the snow onto the salt or closer to the salt. Otherwise, that salt is done right where it is. You put some brine on it and you're going to start breaking it down into its solution sooner, and it will effectively start to make that area of melt bigger. Next one would be when you make your salt brine, you can make it at a little higher salinity than 23.3 to accommodate for dilution during melt. And this statement was one that I heard with somebody talking in regards to doing this while an event was happening, while it was snowing or sleeting. And they said, well, if you make it at a little bit higher solution, then it'll start to, when it starts to dilute, then it'll go down a little bit. And then when it hits, that ideal 23.3, it still works out great. So this is just a little bit different of a chart, but that is a myth. You can also go back to the little table that I had previously, but again, as the salinity of that brine goes above 23.3%, it drastically increases the point at which that brine will freeze, obviously at 32 degrees, just like water. So that chart, if you remember or not, basically at 27%, 32 degrees, that brine will freeze. So it is definitely not a good idea if you're making brine to try and play with those percentage points to make something a little bit better. It's not going to work in your favor. Next one I got is it is cheaper to treat with salt than it is with brine in a de-ice application. The caveat I'll add, or the forewarning I'll add to this is with direct liquids and de-icing applications, you have to be very careful. It's generally recommended that these occur with shorter routes, or routes that are closer to your liquid source. Your route cycle time should be less. It shouldn't take you, 3, 4, 5 hours to get back to the road that you just applied to. And they generally will recommend that you don't apply during precipitation while it's falling. However, you can if your route cycle time is short enough that you can get back and re-scrape the road and reapply it before its salinity goes down to the point where you create ice. So that statement was a myth. Based on our current salt prices, you can treat almost 3 times the amount of miles with brine versus salt. The graphic I put up there was from this year from WSDOT, and based on their current average or price per ton for salt, and then what it would take to make that brine and treat, you can see what $1,000 would treat as far as lane miles go. And like I said, it's almost 3 times the amount of miles with brine. I added a little something at the bottom here. We had an event that was actually in the previous picture of the roads. We treated it with a product that we make that's blended. And I had a truck that was doing nothing but spraying. And I had a truck that was doing, it was applying granular and liquid. It was pre-wetting it with it. And we ended up with the same amount of treatment miles on our log sheets. So I took everything and broke it down. Even with the cost of our blended product, every mile that we treated with liquid, it costs the town $2.23 per mile less. And that was a minor event. It wasn't, a big mileage event. I think it was maybe 45 or 50 miles for treatment, but 50 miles times 223 a mile times, you can start multiplying it out if you have multiple pieces of equipment, multiple events. There's definitely some savings there, not only monetarily, but over just spreading straight salt. Next one I have is when using brine in either an anti-ice, which would be pre-stormer event or pre-wetting application, more is always better. And for this, I chose both. And my points were, at some point, there can be an over application of brine in circumstances where too much product is used. Therefore, you're going to have some waste. But I added, however, certain cases operators have found increasing their liquid rates in de-icing applications prior to making the choice to increase their granular. They've achieved what they needed to as far as their level of service on any given roads. My former county division of transportation, when they started to get a lot heavier into pre-wetting, they were actually pre-wetting salt. They had an operator that was using almost 100 gallons a ton, and he was obviously going through a lot of liquid. But as pavement temperatures were getting colder, where other operators were going to the next setting on their auger for their salt, he was able to keep it the same for a considerable amount of time longer in an event without having to use that next setting on salt. So, again, sometimes, more can be better to a certain degree. The next one would be anti-ice applications with brine can be done prior to freezing rain events. So same with like a snow event and you're going to go out and anti-ice, your weather forecast is, we're going to have a freezing rain event and we should go out and anti-ice and put some brine down. So that is a myth. Most likely, the odds are very favorable that when the freezing rain event does begin, the amount of liquid precipitation that's going to be falling is going to wash away and or dilute that brine before it can provide any type of benefit of being present on the roadway. I did add the however, because as a matter of fact, this year we had, I think, 2 or 3 freezing drizzle, freezing fog type events where precipitation amounts were extremely minimal. An anti-ice application may be beneficial there. I wouldn't recommend you go out and anti-ice with brine and have even a minor event like that start and not be ready to possibly address things that could still come up. But that would be the only thing in my mind that I would think would possibly justify putting brine down before a liquid event like that. Definitely freezing rain, no. The precipitation will fall way too fast and dilute it way too quick. And back to those percentages, it only takes a few percent and it's diluted to the point where it's just going to work against you. So it'll be a waste of your operation, time and money to do it. Another one would be, in order to start making your brine, if you want to get more involved in it, or you want to get started in it at all, and you want to make brine and you want to put it down, you're probably going to need a large budget and a whole bunch of equipment. So that's a myth. Anybody can get started in liquids at any level. I would encourage anybody who's looking to start to talk to some folks that are doing it, or how they got started. I put the link here so you could go back to the presentation or you can look it up. We did a a webinar. It was last fall sometime, I believe, but it was Brine on a Budget, where I talked about my brine maker that I have, which is the one that's in the picture. Most of the brine maker that's there is things that we acquire. Yep. All right, are we good? You can hear me?
Yep, you're great. Yeah, I'll jump off here and let you finish up.
All righty. So this one was for a fact or myth. Brine is going to end up being the answer in snow and ice control. This is going to put us over the top. This is going to solve all the world's problems, and that's it. Unfortunately, that too is a myth. Brine is a great tool for winter maintenance professionals to have. It is not the answer to everything. It does have its limitations and must be used within its working parameters. Once pavement temperatures get too cold, the application of brine could negatively impact your operations. I did mention this kind of in the beginning too, that I think this is where a lot of people end up with the comment of, brine really doesn't work. We tried it. We didn't see a difference. All of that kind of, comments. And I think a lot of those, if you go back and look, something is not being done operationally correct. It's either your pavement temperatures are too cold, you're not using the recommended gallons per mile or gallons per ton. There's something going on where it's not allowing you to see the success that it has. So if it's used within its parameters, it definitely is a benefit, and you will see positive results. Behind my wording, you can actually see another picture of a salt kernel. That's another one of those examples that I shot a picture of, that salt kernel, using the available moisture around it, and basically it did that, and there it sits until something happens to it. And just about last, this is a study that was just released by WSDOT through the UW-Madison Traffic Operations and Safety Laboratory. The study isn't particularly long, being, I guess, a winter maintenance geek. I will probably read it at some point. But basically, the study concluded that the brine and the use of brine is better for winter roads. Some of the key points were the amount of salt you had the ability to potentially reduce. It gave you bare or wet pavement conditions quicker than traditional salt applications. And it talks about friction ratings, which is basically just the ability for a vehicle's tires to grip the roadway surface. So obviously, if there's snow and or ice on the roadway, you don't have a very good friction rating. So the brine helped you achieve a higher friction rating quicker. So basically, their savings through the areas studied was $5.95 per lane mile when implementing salt brine compared to solid rock salt. So I gave you one of my examples of where I saved using liquid. Here's another example per lane mile of what can potentially be saved. So again, these examples and case studies and everything are out there all the way, from WSDOT to my small little town. You can save and it can be done. So with that, thank you for attending and talking about winter. Hopefully now that we're in spring, that's going to be a distant memory soon. Like Allison said, if there's questions or comments, I'll gladly take them. My contact information is there on the screen. I am always willing to help as best I can. And later on this year, Allison's asked me to talk a little bit about blending products with Brine. I do blend a agricultural based product with my brine, and have had some good results with it. So later on this year, we'll get a presentation put together for the next level, because we've also had some questions through these presentations of people asking me about what I'm doing with it. So we'll get that put together, and I will get that out, and we'll have another webinar, and I'll share what I know about that too.
All right. Thank you so much again, Matt. This was really great. And yeah, I will again put out there, please do type any questions or comments that you have for Matt into the chat. Don't be shy. It's great to know that we have an audience out there. Looks like from my view that there are 43 people viewing this currently. So that's awesome. 25 right with us on the live webinar. So I did put, while people are maybe thinking of those questions that they want to share out, I did type into the chat and share with everybody the link for our next webinar. So in June, Matt did an excellent job of providing us a segue. We're actually going to have Andy Bill from the UW TOPS Lab present the research of that study that Matt shared in the previous slide. So that will be coming up Wednesday, June 1st, again at noon. And then just like this video, it will be archived on our YouTube channel. And I also wanted to mention that Matt's mentioned DLA, or direct liquid application, a few times in this webinar, and that we are going to have in August Bill Kern from Jefferson County talking about DLA, because that is something that again has kind of come up through these webinars and follow-up conversations. People would like to hear about direct liquid application. It's not being used by many municipalities right now, but it has been used quite a bit by Jefferson County on county and state highways. So great to have that expertise. And also, if there are other topics that you would like to see covered, please do just share those out, and we will work to bring people in. So it looks like we've got one comment in the chat here from Tim saying, thank you, Matt. Very well done.
You're welcome.
And Laura also saying, thank you. Excellent information as always. And Sean just popped on and said that he missed it. It is recorded and it will be available on our YouTube. You could actually, I think, just go back right now and start it from the beginning. I'll probably go in and clean up that one little portion where we had to get Matt on and off. So Matt, I feel bad I'm not the only one whose audio gets kind of wonky.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so it looks like, yeah, Corey from Eau Claire was on and said great information. And okay, yeah, Scott from Cudahy popped on, said he arrived late, but was wondering if you have any experience with direct liquid applications during storm events. So yeah, I guess, and he saw that we're gonna have Bill Kern on, but do you want to just briefly, Matt, kind of touch on that direct liquid during storm events?
Sure. With your direct liquids, one of the couple of things that I mentioned is you need shorter route cycle times, where you can apply liquid probably more often than you would put a salt down. Because of it already being a liquid, it will dilute faster, especially during a precipitation event. It'll also depend on what kind of liquid you're putting down. If you're talking about just brine versus a blended product, there could be some time differences there. There are some parameters that you need to, I guess, keep in mind and be mindful of when you're going to do it. I know you can do it for a fact. I do it minimal right now. I'd like to get into it a little bit more as my agency is able to. But like Allison said too, next month with Jefferson County talking about it, they're obviously doing it on a much larger scale. So it'll be good information to hear I guess, the big picture of it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so next month will be Andy Bill from UW Tops Lab talking about
Oh,
the
that's
Brine
right.
study. Yeah,
Yep.
but then August, so July, we're gonna have a couple folks from Michigan and Ohio talk about the toxic impacts of salt. And then it's August as well when
Okay.
Bill is speaking. So I don't think I have that link up yet on the website, but if you've been getting my emails, you'll get the reminder for that webinar as well. So, yeah. So yeah, that's all that I think we have right now. I'll keep an eye out for another question or comment coming in here, but just want to say thanks again to everybody who did tune in and for this live webinar. And please do share the link out. This will be archived on our YouTube, and you can also access it from the Saltwise website. So thank you so much. And Matt, great to see you again, and congratulations. I'm really excited for you to receive that award tomorrow.
I'm ready to go fishing.
Well served. So, all right, take care.
All righty.